A park ranger stands forward-facing in uniform of a tan flat hat, a green jacket, and green trousers. The ranger stands at the edge of a rock outcropping of a mountain. The valley below is wooded, and a thin layer of clouds hangs over the valley floor. In the distance rises another mountain ridge.
Hi, my name is Chris Young, and I'm one of the park rangers here at Chickamauga and Chattanooga National Military Park. We want to welcome you back to our commemorative programs for the 157th anniversary of the battles for Chattanooga. So now it's October the 28th. Yesterday we left you after describing and discussing the Battle of Brown's Ferry and the opening of what would become the Cracker Line. Today, on October the 28th, we're standing here on Sunset Rock on the top of Lookout Mountain. This rock's going to play a pivotal part in the coming battle that's going to occur on tomorrow, October the 29th, in the very early morning hours. And we'll be listening to park historian Jim Ogden explain that. But what I want to do is to get us set up for the Battle of Wauhatchie that'll occur tomorrow. On the morning of October the 28th of 1863, James Longstreet has made his way up to the top of the mountain. Now, this photo of Longstreet shows him in a seated position. He's facing the camera with a long beard, and he's in Confederate uniform. Longstreet had already left his headquarters that morning, coming up to the top of the mountain, and didn't wait around for the Army commander, Braxton Bragg, to show up. Bragg is actually seen in this photo with a salt and pepper graying beard and hair in Confederate uniform, and he's also facing the camera. Bragg shows up to Longstreet's headquarters. Longstreet's already gone up to the top of the mountain, so Bragg rides up to the top of the mountain also, using that same Lookout Mountain Turnpike that we talked about a few weeks ago on October the 3rd. So as Bragg gets to the top of the mountain, he walks out to Point Lookout, or Battery Point that we talked about earlier, onto the tip of the mountain, and is watching what's happening down in the valley. He's looking at Brown's Ferry. He's watching the Union forces as they continue to entrench there. He's also talking to Longstreet. He's a little perturbed at this point that nothing else occurred to try to help stymie the onslaught of the Union Army at Brown's Ferry. At the moment that Longstreet and Bragg are beginning to talk, a courier rides up, bringing a message that General Joseph Hooker and the Union 11th and 12th Corps have shown up in Lookout Valley, which is just behind me, just down the valley here. That's Wills Valley, or Lookout Valley. We'll hear about it in just a few moments, referred to as Wills Valley. So this is Lookout Valley / Wills Valley. That courier rides up and he brings Longstreet and Bragg down here to Sunset Rock, where they meet up with another general who's already been on top of the mountain. St. John Liddell is a Confederate general. He's made his way over from Missionary Ridge, and Liddell can be seen in this photo. He's in Confederate uniform. He has a short beard. He's facing the camera, and he has a striped bow tie on. Liddell had been at Point Park, at Point Lookout, when this initial encounter between Bragg and Longstreet occurs. Then he rode down to this point where he meets up with them again, and he watches as the Union troops flood into the valley just behind me. Liddell gives us a great picture of what unfolds right here on Sunset Rock that day. Here's what he says. He says, "I went away to the left side of the mountain, where we are now, to the left of where Point Park would be today, where Point Lookout is. I went away to the left side of the mountain. There I could have a distinct view of Wills Valley and the Memphis and Charleston Railroad." Now this is actually the Nashville and Chattanooga Railroad. But Liddell continues, "I had been there but a few moments when I discovered a Federal column debouching from Raccoon Mountain and moving down the valley to connect with the forces at the pontoon bridge. So as we swing up Lookout Valley, this would be the way that the Union soldiers would be marching to the north, and they're headed toward the forces at the pontoon bridge, which is the pontoon bridge that was constructed from those pontoon boats at Brown's Ferry. So these Union soldiers are marching up to connect with those members of Hazen's brigade and those Union soldiers that took Brown's Ferry the day before, to open up essentially this cracker line, this supply line into the city of Chattanooga, where those Union soldiers are beleaguered and beginning to be on the instance of starvation. But Liddell says, I sent back the information to Colonel Alexander. Now, E.P. Alexander can be seen here in a photograph. He's in Confederate uniform with a dark beard looking at the camera. He sends back for Alexander, and Liddell says he's the chief of artillery for Longstreet's corps. Alexander immediately afterwards made his appearance with several of his rifled pieces and trained their range upon the column, at least 1,400 feet below and 1 mile, apparently on an airline, distant. He continues by saying, I could not perceive that much damage was done, though the shells caused the enemy to hesitate. They swerved aside into the woods, out of aim, and emerged at a lower point beyond the range. Soon afterwards, they passed along the front of Longstreet's position at the foot of the mountain and drove aside his line of skirmishers. Liddell continues, Bragg and Longstreet had just before this come to the place where I was standing and witnessed the proceedings. Bragg was very restless and complained with bitterness of Longstreet's inactivity and lack of ability, asserting him to be greatly overrated. He said that Longstreet asked his permission to make an attack by moonlight tonight, which he assented, anything to accomplish the purpose. So this is where that meeting between Bragg and Longstreet occurs for them to begin the planning of the operation that'll happen about midnight and after on the morning of October the 29th, which will eventually be called the Battle of Wauhatchie. Now, this is from the perspective of two general officers in the Confederate Army as they're making this plan for this night attack. But what I want us to do is head back over to Point Park and get a view from the western side of the mountain there, where members of Parker's Virginia Battery are encamped, part of Colonel Alexander's artillery battalion over in modern-day Point Park. So we'll see you over there.
The park ranger now stands next to an iron railing on the side of a mountain. The valley behind and below the ranger consists of wooded areas and some structures. Another mountain ridge rises in the distance.
Welcome back, everyone. We've moved from Sunset Rock, where we've left General Bragg and General Longstreet as they're planning the attack that'll occur the evening of October 28th into the early morning of October 29th, the Battle of Wauhatchie as it'll become to be known. Now we've moved over to Point Park, part of Chickamauga and Chattanooga National Military Park as well, where we're going to revisit someone that we heard from a few weeks ago, Private Royal Figg of Parker's Virginia Battery of Artillery. On October 3rd, we heard from Figg as the artillery battery moved their guns up to the top of Lookout Mountain and began shelling Moccasin Point from up here. What happens that evening? Well, Figg tells us. Figg writes down and says that late one chilly evening in the latter part of October, probably October 28th is what I'm thinking, General Longstreet visited the mountain and took coffee with Captain Parker. It was whispered among us that something important was about to happen, and last it passed from lip to lip that an attack was to be made that night by General Jenkins on a Yankee wagon train on the road to Chattanooga and supposed to be thinly guarded. The wind was so high that it was with difficulty we kept our fires from blowing away. Wrapped in our thin blankets, we went to sleep, thinking about the night attack. Not long after midnight, we were awakened by the booming of a single cannon in the valley below. This is Lookout Valley he's talking about, just below me, behind me. Figg continues, the attack had begun. Running to the jutting rocks on the mountain, we beheld a scene that for weird grandeur and tragic interest will not soon be forgotten. The battle was before us a picture. Figg had a front row seat, as did his comrades in Parker's Virginia Battery, of what was about to come and the night attack at Wauhatchie. We hope to see you tomorrow as we view the presentation from Park historian Jim Ogden as he looks at the fighting that occurred just behind me during the Battle of Wauhatchie. Thanks for joining us today, and we hope that you'll continue to view our videos as we commemorate the 157th anniversary of the battles for Chattanooga.